All right, so today we're going to be going over two different fragrances just to kind of see exactly how close these come to the original and just giving my overall thoughts on these two fragrances. So one is actually going to be from Pendora Scents, which is basically Paris Corner. And then the other is going to be from Lattafa. All right. So what I have here is Enchantment Blue Intense, and that's from Pendora. And I have Qaa'ed Intense from Lattafa. All right. So Blue Enchantment, this is actually Dolce & Gabbana's light blue Eau Intense for women. All right. And then this is actually the Qaa'ed Intense from Lattafa. This is going to be Givenchy Gentleman's Reserve Privee. That's what these two are basically are cloning. So pretty much how I ended up with the Enchantment Blue Intense is when I saw this on Frag Bar, I don't think that they had like a picture of the bottle for this one. They just listed it and they said it was a light blue Eau Intense clone. So I was like, okay. So I just picked it up thinking that it was the light blue Eau Intense for men, but it actually ended up being light blue Eau Intense for women. Now, this is the presentation of the box. So you have here Enchantment Blue Intense, you've got Pendora Scents, Eau de Parfum. This is a 100 ml bottle. All right. And then you've got nothing on each side. You've got Pendora Scents up top. You've got the sort of Paris Corner authenticity sticker and logo down here, as well as the ingredients. And you've got the barcode as well as like the manufacture date and stuff like that at the bottom. This one was manufactured June of 2023. All right. So box pretty much opens up like this. And this is what the bottle looks like. Now, as soon as I saw this bottle, I was thinking, because I had seen the women's version of light blue Eau Intense before, and I was thinking, that kind of looks like the women's, bottle of this. But I didn't think that it was the women's version because the website didn't specifically say that it was the women's version. I found out that it was the women's version once I smelled this side by side with the men's version of light blue Eau Intense. Then I went ahead and got a sample of the women's version. I was like, okay, that's pretty much what it is. All right, so this is the bottle. The cap is on there tight enough for you to pick the bottle up by the cap. You've got the Enchantment Blue Intense up here, Pendora Scents, and then Eau de Parfum. This is like a frosted bottle pretty much, which I believe the women's bottle is also like that as well. And then you've got Pendora Scent sticker down here at the bottom. All right. The cap is pretty cheap, pretty light, but like I said, it does definitely hold the fragrance, good enough for you to pick it up by the cap. Now, I was pretty glad that this actually ended up being the women's version, only because I had seen another YouTube fragrance reviewer. Her name is Melissa. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I don't know if it's like Nacional or something like that. She basically, on her channel, I had seen a couple times where she had recommended like the women's version of light blue Eau Intense to men pretty much to wear. Basically stating that the fragrance didn't really smell like a women's fragrance per se. It definitely was more kind of like on like the unisex sort of side of things. So I was definitely curious about that fragrance when I heard her say that, but never really got around to actually buying the real version of light blue Eau Intense for women. So once I got this, I was like, okay. And I do see where she's coming from, when she says that about this particular fragrance. All right, now if you're not familiar with the way that, light blue Eau Intense for women smells, these pretty much are the notes for that fragrance. So in the top, you have lemon and Granny Smith apple. In the mid, you have jasmine and marigold. And then in the base, you have musk and amberwood. All right. So there's not like an overabundance of like florals or like really sort of extra fruity notes or anything like that in this particular fragrance. This to me, it just smells like a really sort of fresh, clean sort of scent. And you know, just like how she said, Melissa, I don't necessarily get like a super feminine type of vibe from this fragrance. I mean, to me, this smells like, I would say it does smell pretty like generic. So I would say this really isn't anything that's super special for real. But this is a very nice, I would say, fresh, clean, easygoing, typical sort of summer type of scent, pretty much. That's pretty much what I get from this fragrance. When you first spray this one, you get that blast of lemon and that sort of slightly tart Granny Smith apple. Now, I would say in the Enchantment Blue Intense, the way that the apple comes off, to me, it comes off as being, I would say, slightly more sweeter than what it does in the original Dolce & Gabbana. I'm sorry. Also, the Dolce & Gabbana, to me, it comes off as being slightly more brighter and a little bit more sort of diffusive, a little bit more aromatic than what this does. Yeah, the Dolce & Gabbana definitely, it comes off as being a little bit louder than what the Enchantment Blue Intense does. Now, for some people, that may be a downside because just the scent profile in general, the light blue O Intense for women, at least from what I've seen from, you know, numerous people online, is that fragrance just does not really perform that good in terms of projection and longevity. Now, I do have a actual sample of the Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue O Intense for women. Basically, I've smelled the two side by side. I haven't really, I'll be honest, I haven't really like worn that fragrance, long enough to really be able to know whether or not it performs good or not. For the most part, each time that I've worn the two fragrances, I've only worn them for maybe about 3 to 4 hours or so, just to kind of get a good feel of the transitions in the fragrances, and how they smell kind of side by side. And I mean, for the most part, I got, at least those 4 hours, I would say, out of the original Dolce & Gabbana. Definitely the whole entire time, I can say that the Enchantment Blue Intense was definitely a little bit more muted as compared to the original Dolce & Gabbana. But I do sort of feel like this version of the fragrance, or of the scent profile anyway, this does come off as being a little bit more kind of smoother, and I would say less sort of like chemical smelling. That's one thing that I saw other people noticing with the original Dolce & Gabbana fragrance as well, is that fragrance, it sort of has like a slightly sort of synthetic kind of chemical sort of smell to it. That's definitely a vibe that I was getting from that fragrance. I feel like that is whatever they're using to kind of reproduce the Granny Smith apple note in the fragrance. But it, in some cases, it kind of comes off as smelling like Windex slightly, I guess you could say. I don't necessarily get that particular vibe from this fragrance. Although, again, this does sit a little bit closer to my skin than even what the original fragrance does. So I would say in terms of projection on this one, this is going to give you at least, I would say, about slightly less than an arm's length of projection for, I would say, about the first hour and 15 minutes pretty much. And then after that, it does settle closer to your skin. In terms of like the total longevity with this one, like I said, I was getting at least about 4 hours or so pretty much with this fragrance. Haven't really worn it for that much longer, I would say, for the most part. But while I did wear the fragrance, I could definitely say that I did smell this for sure. Even though it was, again, slightly less, I would say, in terms of the projection when compared to the original from Dolce & Gabbana. So I would say, I mean, this is going to be like a fragrance that you could just wear if you're going to run errands. I would say this would also be a good fragrance to wear maybe if you're getting on a flight and you want to wear a fragrance, but obviously you don't want, your fragrance to kind of overtake the whole entire flight or, blow out the nose of the person sitting next to you. I think that this would be a really sort of pleasant scent to wear that, it wouldn't necessarily be anything that anybody would, take offense to pretty much. Also, maybe if you're wanting to wear like a fragrance to school or maybe to work where maybe they're like really, really strict on fragrances, then this would also be a good choice for that as well. Now, obviously, if you're wearing it to school or work, maybe you would need to carry the bottle around with you and kind of refresh yourself, because this doesn't really seem like the type of fragrance that's going to last a super long time. But again, this is a very sort of fresh and clean, pleasant sort of scent that I think, in my opinion, is best suited for, like, I would say probably the spring and summertime for the most part. But I would say in like a climate controlled environment, where the temperature is, probably in the 70s or so, you could probably wear this at any point in time in the year, as long as you're in a climate controlled environment, pretty much. All right. So pretty much, if I'm going to give this one a closeness rating on, a scale of 1 to 100 to the original fragrance, I would say that this one is about 85% pretty much close to the light blue Eau Intense for women. And then just in terms of like an overall rating on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of how much I enjoy this fragrance, I would say that this is a solid 8 out of 10 pretty much. This isn't necessarily the most interesting fragrance, but it also is a very nice, pleasant scent to wear pretty much. I would say this is a very easy sort of beater fragrance pretty much. All right. Also, I mean, again, for the price that this goes for, I think I saw this on fragbar.com and paid like $27 pretty much for this, and this is a 100 ml bottle. So I mean, $27 for 100 ml, I would say that's pretty good. That is pretty good for this. So definitely, man, check this one out. If you are familiar with light blue Eau Intense for women and you're a man and you actually enjoy that fragrance, then I would say definitely check this one out as a good alternative to that fragrance. And also, even for women, I would say this is also a very good fragrance to wear, especially. All right. So definitely check this one out again, man. All right. So the next one on the list, this one again is going to be Qaa'ed Intense from Lattafa. So this is the full presentation for that fragrance. So this is basically like a kind of sleeve that comes up like that. But you've got this sort of embroidered, sort of sticker here on the front. It says Qaa'ed up here, and then Intense and Lattafa down here at the bottom. You've got the Lattafa logo up top. And then on the back here, you've got the Lattafa authenticity sticker, as well as the manufacture date. This was manufactured October of 2023. And at the bottom, you've got Qaa'ed Intense, 100 ml. This is a eau de parfum concentration. And then you've got like the barcode and stuff like that. All right, and the ingredients. All right, and so then the bottle basically, it just sits in there like that, and it comes out. And this bottle is like the same sort of bottle as the original Qaa'ed from Lattafa. I believe the original Qaa'ed bottle though is a different color. Definitely let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but I believe it's not the same sort of green color. And then pretty much I was hoping that this cap would be magnetic, but it's not. But I would say it is not necessarily strong enough for you to necessarily pick up by the cap. Sometimes I can pick it up by the cap just fine, but it's not necessarily a safe bet. So I would say don't do it. And then you've got Qaa'ed Intense Lattafa here on the front, all right, as well as a Lattafa sticker down here at the bottom, Lattafa logo up here, and then you've got the 100 ml Eau de Parfum pretty much around the rim, all right. So this one is going to be the Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privee clone. And what I can say is this is a solid clone, I would say, of the Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privee. Now, the differences between this and the original from Givenchy, for the most part, are, I would say, the Givenchy, the sort of booziness that you get from that fragrance, to me, it comes off as being a lot more sort of prominent than what you get with this fragrance, the Qaa'ed Intense. This one to me comes off as being a lot more woodier for the most part than what the Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privee does. Now this does still have some booziness, especially, you know, in the opening when you first spray this on. But I would say it's not as much as, you know, what you get with the Givenchy. Not as much at all. All right. Yeah, for the most part, I get a lot of woody notes from this. I get a slightly sort of powdery iris. The bergamot is definitely there as well to kind of, you know, add some freshness to this. And then you do get that sort of whiskey note from the fragrance as well. But to me, it's more in the background in this fragrance than what it is in the original. So if you're not familiar with the notes of this fragrance, pretty much the top notes are bergamot. In the mid, you have iris and chestnut. And then in the base, you have whiskey, woodsy notes, and amber. And yeah, man, like I said, I'm getting more of kind of like that sort of chestnut, iris, bergamot, and woods for the most part when I first spray this fragrance on, with a sort of boozy kind of undertone, you know, in the background with the whiskey. With, I would say, a slightly sort of resinous kind of amber feel to it. But again, not exactly the same as, you know, the original from Givenchy. Now, this is definitely, it's going to be very similar to something like this, the Cayenne Classic, which is the Dior Homme Intense, you know, clone. Definitely, I would say that the Cayenne Classic is going to be a lot more powdery, in my opinion. So definitely more heavier on the iris than what this is. And this also doesn't really come off as being boozy really at all. Whereas this one definitely, even though it doesn't have as much as the Givenchy does, it does still have some of that booziness present in this fragrance. To me, I would say these two aren't necessarily 100% redundant. You know, I would say definitely if you're on maybe a tight budget, it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to have both of these. But I would say the Cayenne Classic is going to be more of kind of like a dressed up sort of scent. So this is definitely going to be something that you would more so reach for, you know, for sort of, you know, more formal type of events. Whereas with the Qaa'ed Intense from Lattafa, to me, this just smells more kind of like a more like casual type of scent. All right. I feel like you could still dress this one up, but I feel like I would more so kind of wear this one in more sort of casual situations, more so than I would, you know, the Dior Homme Intense. I think both are good sort of date night fragrances. But let's say, you know, this one would be the one that I would wear if I'm going to like a super high-end restaurant and, you know, I have on, you know, more of like a dressier outfit. Whereas this one, I would more so reach for this one if I'm just kind of, you know, just going to, you know, a more sort of basic restaurant. So I don't know, like, You know, maybe if I'm going to you know, Cheesecake Factory or something like that, and you know, I have on more of sort of like a casual sort of attire, this is, I would say, I would definitely more so reach for this one over the Kion Classic in that situation. Now, in terms of the performance on this, the performance is actually pretty good. So I'm getting at least 8 hours pretty much with the Qaa'ed Intense. It's not like, I would say, a super like beast mode projecting scent, but this definitely has pretty good sillage and it does linger a lot. Definitely, I would say the sillage on this is going to be at least 3 to 4 feet pretty much for the most part. And in terms of the projection, I would say you're going to get, I would say, at least about an arm's length of projection for the most part for like about the first hour and a half pretty much. And then it comes a little bit closer to your skin. But again, it's not like a super beast mode sort of scent in my opinion. All right. This is a very classy scent though, in my opinion. I would say, again, it's going to be at least about, like if I'm going to rate this on like a scale of 1 to 100, this I would say is going to be at least about 85% pretty much close to the Givenchy. So, you know, close enough pretty much, I would say. The Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privee, I think that fragrance is definitely on the higher end when it comes to prices for like designer fragrances. Believe that one normally goes for close to $200, so like around $180, $190 or so. Whereas with the Qaa'ed Intense, this was, I believe, like $30 to $35. And this again is a 100 ml bottle. So this one for me, it comes close enough, pretty much, I would say. Also, if I'm going to rate this one on a scale from 1 to 10, just in terms of, you know, how much I enjoyed this fragrance, I would say this is easily a 9 out of 10, easily. This is a very good value fragrance, pretty much. Like I said, it comes about 85% close to the Givenchy, which is several times more in price than this. And it doesn't smell cheap. That's the main thing, I would say. It doesn't really smell cheap. Doesn't smell as high quality as the Givenchy, but I mean, I would say not really by much, all right? So definitely, man, if you're looking for a really nice, classy, you know, sort of boozy, woody, but, you know, at the same time, really sort of grown man sort of smelling fragrance, then definitely check this one out. Again, this is going to be Qaa'ed Intense from Lattafa. All right, so that's my take on the two fragrances. Definitely, man, let me know in the comments if you all have smelled both of these fragrances, and if so, have you smelled the originals, and how close do you think that these actually come to the original fragrances? All right, let me know in the comments below. And again, if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And once again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see y'all in the next video.